Good morning, or afternoon, or evening. Just good to see you. It's Ivan time. It is Read Aloud. We are on page 108. So we just had our last section. We're going to do our flip back so we can put our brain bookmarks in and we can remember where we're at. And as I flip back right now, I can automatically see on the page before there's little Ruby in the ring. Her first time in the ring by herself, which makes me think of a couple things. One is she was a big hit and everybody loved it. The second thing I think of is she was alone because Stella was not feeling that great. Remember, her leg was hurting really bad, so she had to go out there by herself. When she goes out there, Ivan even says, "I don't know if to be happy or sad about her being a hit." Right? It kind of goes back to the Stella question of why did Stella feel sad that Ruby was there? She should be happy. It's another elephant, but she wasn't happy because she knew she was going to have to live the same life, right? Trapped in this domain, doing tricks with dogs jumping on your head, and maybe not the best life for a wild animal, right? So that's the last kind of thing. We also heard Ruby's story in this, and that was all about her falling into a giant hole of water and the villagers pulling her out. Bob didn't believe it, right? A lot of them didn't believe it. But they really did. They helped her get out. They put her back with her family. So there was some good humans, right? So they've been talking lately about good humans and not so good humans or bad humans. So even Stella says they're unpredictable, right? Bob thinks that humans are rats, right? But think about how Bob was treated, right? Bob was thrown out of a car when he was a puppy and thrown in the frozen road, and he barely survived, right? So, of course, Bob doesn't like humans either. They also talked about, I'm trying to think of one last little thing. Anything else? They mentioned about, zoos are these outdoor wild domains. It's where humans make amends. It's where humans, make up for all the bad stuff that they do. So the last thing, that was the last thing we saw was Ruby in the ring performing, and here we go. This is page 108. Worry. When Julia arrives after the show, she brings 3 thick books, 1 pencil, and something she calls magic markers. Here, Ivan. Sorry, that's Julia. Here, Ivan, she says, and she slides 2 magic markers and a piece of paper into my domain. I like the sundown colors, red and purple, but I don't feel like coloring. I'm worried about Stella. All evening she's been quiet, and she hasn't eaten a bit of her dinner. Julia follows my gaze. Where's Stella anyway? She asked, and she goes off to Stella's gate. Ruby extends her trunk, and Julia pats it. Hi, baby, she says. Is Stella all right? Stella's lying in a pile of dirty hay. Her breath is ragged. Dad, Julia calls. Could you come here a minute? George sets aside his mop. Do you think she's okay, Dad? Julia asked. Look at the way she's breathing. Can we call Mac? I think there's something really wrong. He must know about her. George rubs his chin. He always knows. But a vet costs money, Jules. Please. Julia's eyes are wet. Call him, Dad. George gazes at Stella. He puts his hands on his hips and sighs. He'll call Mac. I can't hear all of their words, but I can see George's lips tighten into a grim line. Gorilla expressions and human expressions are a lot alike. And I just made me think of this too. Remember before when they said she was hurting? He didn't want to, I can't call a doctor every time somebody sneezes, so what do you think Mac's going to say this time? Is he going to do it? Is he going to care? Is he going to call the vet? Max says the vet's coming in the morning if Stella's not any better, he tells Julia. He says he's not going to let her die on him, not after all the money he's put into her. George strokes Julia's hair. She'll be all right. She's a tough old girl. Julia sits by Stella's domain until it's time to go home. She doesn't do her homework. She doesn't even draw. The promise. My domain gleams with moonlight when I awake to the sound of Stella's calls. Ivan, Stella says in a hoarse whisper. Ivan. I'm here, Stella. I sit up abruptly, and Bob topples off my stomach. I run to a window. I can see Ruby next to Stella, sleeping soundly. Ivan, I want you to promise me something, Stella says. Anything, I say. I've never asked for a promise before, because promises are forever, and forever is an unusually long time, especially when you're in a cage. Domain, I correct. Domain, she agrees. It's a different feeling, right, between a cage and a domain. Right? Domain sounds proud, my room, my territory. Cage sounds a lot worse, right? I straighten to my full height. I promise, Stella, I say in a voice like my father's. But you haven't heard what I've been asking yet, she says, and she closes her eyes for a moment. Her great chest shudders. I promise anyway. Stella doesn't say anything for a long time. Never mind, she says finally. I don't know what I was thinking. The pain is making me addled. Ruby stirs. Her trunk moves as if she's reaching for something that isn't there. When I say the words, they surprise me. You want me to take care of Ruby? Stella nods, a small gesture that makes her wince. If she could have a life that's different from mine. She needs a safe place, Ivan. Not here, I say. It will be easier to promise to stop eating, to stop breathing, to stop being a gorilla. I promise, Stella, I say. I promise it on my word as a silverback. Man, she's not doing good. She's asking Ivan to take care of Ruby. To try to get her out of there, right? She doesn't deserve to be there. But Ivan says it there, right? It's easier to stop eating or to stop breathing than it would be able to, keep a promise like that. Knowing. Before Mac, before Bob, and even before Ruby, I know Stella is gone. I know it the way you know the summer is over and the winter is on its way. I just know. Stella once teased me that elephants are superior because they feel more joy and more grief than apes. Your gorilla hearts are made of ice, Ivan, she said, her eyes glittering one day. Our eyes are made of fire. Right now, I would give all the yogurt raisins in all the world for a heart made of ice. She died, guys. She passed away. 5 men. Bob heard from a rat, a reliable sort, that they tossed Stella's body into a garbage truck. It took 5 men in a forklift. I gotta stop there. To me, that's really upsetting. That's how they did that to her body. No burial, no funeral, no nothing. They dumped her in a garbage bin. Comfort. All day I try to comfort Ruby, but what can I say? That Stella had a good and happy life, that she lived as she was meant to live, that she died with those who loved most nearby. At least the last was true. Crying. Julia cries all evening while her father sweeps and mops and dusts and cleans the toilets. When George sees Mac, he runs to him. I can only hear a few words. That. Should have. Wrong. Mac shrugs. His shoulders droop. He leaves without a word. When George wipes the fingerprints off my glass, his cheeks are wet. He doesn't meet my eyes. Everybody's dealing with it now. How sad. The one and only Ivan. When all the humans have left, I send Bob to check on Ruby. How is she? I ask when he returns. She's shivering, Bob says. I tried to cover her with hay, and I told her not to worry because you were going to save her. I glare at him. You told her that? You promised Stella. Bob lowers his head. I wanted to make the kid feel better. I shouldn't have made that promise, Bob. I point to Stella's domain, and for a moment it seems like I've forgotten how to breathe. I wanted to make Stella happy, I guess. But I can't save Ruby. I can't even save myself. I flop back onto my back. The cement is always cold, but tonight it hurts. Bob leaps onto my belly. You're the one and only Ivan, he says. Mighty Silverback. He licks my chin, and he's not even checking for leftovers. Say it, Bob commands. I look away. Say it, Ivan. I don't answer, so Bob licks my nose until I can't stand it any longer. I'm the one and only Ivan, I mutter. And don't you forget it, he says. When I gaze at the food court skylight, the moon Stella loved is shrouded in clouds. A sort of cloudy night there. Bob told her he's going to save her. Told Ruby, I will save you, don't worry. It's a lot of pressure. It's a big promise, right? Promises are hard to keep. Especially one like that. I bet you can think of a time right now when you had to try to keep a promise or you try to do something for somebody, right? Once upon a time. All night, Ruby moans and sniffles. I pace my domain. I don't want to fall asleep in case she needs something. Ivan, Bob says gently, get some sleep, please, for your sake and for mine. Bob can't sleep unless he's on my stomach. I hear stirring. Ivan, Ruby calls. I rush to my window. Ruby, are you all right? I miss Aunt Stella, Ruby sobbed. And I miss my mom and my sisters and my aunts and my cousins too. I know, I say, because it's all I can think of. Ruby sniffles. I can't sleep. Do you know any stories the way Aunt Stella did? Not really, I admit. Stories were Stella's specialty. Tell me a story about when you were little, Ruby pleads. She puts her trunk between the bars. Please, Ivan. I scratch the back of my head. I don't remember things, Ruby, I admit. It's true, Bob says, trying to be helpful. Ivan has a terrible memory. He's the opposite of an elephant. Ruby lets out a long, shivery breath. Oh, well, that's okay. Night, Ivan and Bob. I listen to Ruby's soft sobs for a long, horrible minutes. Then I hear myself saying, once upon a time there was a gorilla named Ivan. And slowly and deliberately, I tried to remember. I keep saying I can't remember. I won't remember, right? But for Ruby, to make Ruby happy, could he do it? Will he do it, right? Will he remember for us and give us a little insight? The grunt. I was born in a place humans call Central Africa, in a dense rainforest so beautiful no crayons could ever do it justice. Gorillas don't name their newborns right away, the way humans do. We get to know our babies first. We wait to see hints of what they might yet be. When they saw how much she loved to chase me around the forest, my parents decided on my twin sister's name, Tag. Oh, how I loved to play tag with my sister. She was nimble, but when I got too close, she would leap onto my unsuspecting father. Then I would join her on her, and we would bounce on the tolerant belly until he gave us the grunt, the rooting pig sound that meant enough. That game never got old, although my father might have disagreed. Mud. It didn't take long for my parents to find my name. All day long, every day, I made pictures. I drew on rocks, and bark, and my poor mother's back. I used the sap from leaves. I used the juice from fruit. But mostly, I used mud. And that is what they called me, Mud. To a human, mud might not seem or sound like much, but to me, it was everything. That's Ivan's real name. That's what his parents named him. Mud. And his sister was named Tag. Um, so I hope you noticed, or right now there's some stuff changing, right? You can feel with Stella passing away. Ruby's there now. The promise, right? That was huge, guys. The promise here that he's gonna save her, that he's gonna do it. But Ivan doesn't know he can't. He said he can't even save himself, let alone saving Ruby. But he also said he couldn't remember stuff, and now he's starting to tell stories of his childhood. Um, so we're gonna stop there. All right, check your activities, what to do next, and I will see you next time.